All right, everybody, before we get started, first of all, welcome. It's not very often we see this many faces in a room, so it's great to have you guys here. We have a couple of topics tonight, so some of you have heard me say this. If you're here to discuss or comment on the public hearing, which pertains to an annexation, we'll call you up during that public hearing. If you're here to comment on anything else pertaining to the agenda, we would just have you fill out a white slip that's right outside these doors and hand it to the clerk right here in blue. So with that, I'm going to call to order our Tuesday, August 6th Common Council meeting. Megan, will you please take the roll?
Davis? Here. Lampy? Board?
Here.
Bartz?
Here.
Blanky?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Schmid?
Here.
Wetzel?
Here.
Moldenhauer?
Here.
Very good. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we get started, Alder Blanky, there were some items placed on desks, and the clerk and Mason are emailing you those documents. All right. The first item on our agenda is the minutes of the council meeting from July 16th. Comments or questions from anyone on those minutes? All right. Then let's move to comments and suggestions from citizens present. Megan will call you up. If you could just please state your name and address.
Yes.
And if that microphone isn't, Stephen will turn that on for, or Lisa's got it. Thank you,
Greg
Lisa.
Sippel?
Hello. I'm here just to make a comment on the upcoming vote you're going to be having on the multifamily housing on Allward Street. I know you've heard from a good sizable portion of that ward over there where it is, and no one wants it, and I agree with it. Some of the things that I don't get is I believe the city rent levels will jump due to the costs and levels that this new project is going to have. From what I found out, if we do a TID financing there, that TID financing is going to take place over 20 plus years, which means no property taxes, I've been told, will be collected on that for 20 plus years, and yet that development will still be using street services, water, police, fire, parks, etc. One question I did have is, what is the rebate going to be going back to developer? I've heard that that number has not been decided yet, but I know a number has to have been bandied about by now. If it isn't, it wouldn't make sense. And if it makes sense for them to do it and not be able to get whatever this incentive is going to be for 20 years, then it makes sense that they would do it even without the incentive if you're going to go down that thing. Because if this thing gets built and a TID is used, that means no property tax will be collected, which means each of your districts, their constituents are going to be funding this project because it'll be on the city taxes to be able to afford these services without collecting any more property taxes. So that's what I wanted to say, and I'm against doing this project. Thank you.
Mr. Stevens starting the timer reminded me. You will hear a timer go off at 3 minutes. When the room's this full, we do our best to hold people to that, and you did, sir. So bravo to you without even needing the timer. But when you hear it, I'm not going to cut you off. Just try to finish up the comment that you were on. Megan.
Will Runke?
Good afternoon or evening. I'm Will Runke, 1406 Fairfield Court. I'm coming here to speak about the upcoming vote to rezone from single-family residential to multifamily residential at the Allward development. Totally against the rezoning of that for all the reasons we heard last time during the meeting, and also with that said, is also against any potential TIFs, TIDs, what have you. Again, I don't think it needs to be reiterated too much about the reasons. I think we all know what they are, and definitely would be happy to keep it as single-family residential going forward, but absolutely against rezoning it to multifamily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Hoppenrath.
Mike Hoppenrath, 1302 Newcastle Court. I'm not going to go over all the reasons I gave you in the past. Please suffice it to say I'm opposed to ordinances 24, 17, and 18.
Thank you.
Jennifer Johnson.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Johnson. I'm here representing actually my employer, Marquardt, here in town. I'm coming to strongly push for housing in our Watertown community. Right now, there are staffing mandates, there are pressures to have more staff in our senior community and in our hospitals. Right now, our number one obstacle is housing. We cannot find housing for people to come here and work in Watertown. We just brought in a nurse from Philippines, his wife and his son, and they have to go all the way to Neshota for housing, to work here in our community, which is so wrong. They're moving across the country. They're needing to make that connection to here in our community. His wife could be a productive workforce in our community. His son could be in our school system, and instead they're in another community supporting that community. We need housing. It is our number one obstacle. I'm trying to bring in some refugees. I can't get them here. I can't get workforce. There's not housing. It is our number one obstacle, so I'm begging you guys to help us find options for housing in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Feldman.
I was just going to say, as Robert walks up, I wanted to mention, because normally go ahead, Robert, coming up. I normally mention this. Super awkward that we can't talk back to you, but we can't. So if you pose any questions to us, just know that we're not like blankly not listening to you. It's just the manner of how this portion of the agenda is set up. So just like to give that insight to our guests.
It would be helpful if you could talk back.
Yeah. Well, I
Answer
will.
some questions as you go.
Sure.
Just-
Well, we try our best to jot them down, but you can always ask them to this gentleman over here, and he'll make sure we get answers for you.
Robert Feldman, 1300 Newcastle Court. I have the privilege of having a house that's 35 feet from the property line. The bottom of my ditch is a property line behind my house, which is approximately 35 feet from the property that's in question for multifamily. Questions I have, how is the new water flow going to be? Currently, the water from the east and south runs under a garden shed that I had when I bought the property. All that water flows under there. Hopefully they're going to make sure they get that moved so it is not a burden on our property, because our sump pumps run plenty as it is on that lower end of that property. The TIF district, I understand, is going to encompass over 60 acres to allow the 35% in the 20-acre parcel would be 35% of the TID district. And I'm wondering how that is going to impact the other businesses and residents within that TID district. The other questions I have with the TIF district, if that goes through, what is that going to do to the residents of the city's property taxes? And also, with my understanding, the school is selling this for a profit. I'm assuming there will be no discount on our school taxes. Matter of fact, I think they're going to continue to go up because of the deficits that we see both in the city and the school district level. Additional traffic on that road, you're talking about putting in 150 plus rental units plus up to 30 houses. I'm going to call them row houses. They use the term condo. 60 by 90 foot parcels is not what I would define as a condo type of building site. The other question I have is, why are they putting in a what they call it, a bike path in this? Is there a master plan in the city where that's going to connect to something that even exists? I'm not aware of it. I've been here 15 years. I'm not sure what that's for. I do appreciate that they moved it away from my backyard. Again, 90% of the time we spend is in that four-season room that faces this property. The other questions, I think, have been pretty well answered. As you can tell, I am not in favor of it. With the rental rates of up over $1,700 per unit per month, that is going to raise the rent on the surrounding apartment complexes as well. I mean, nobody's going to have their facilities for $500 to $800 to $900 less per month than what the neighbor's getting. So that's going to affect the residents as well. So between increases in school taxes, increases in city taxes to help pay for this, I am totally against switching this to multifamily. Thank you.
It's as if you timed yourself at home for 3 minutes.
Nancy Pullman.
Hi, Nancy Pellman, 1400 Beacon Drive. Also live in the Grandview Heights subdivision, and I'm opposed to the rezoning. Currently, our subdivision is surrounded on 3 sides by multifamily housing. I don't know how many of you live in areas that have that much multifamily housing and live in a nice subdivision. Our subdivision is beautiful. I think more apartment buildings around our subdivision would decrease our property values. We also have a lovely park that's well used and very respectfully taken care of by the users. Many are from our subdivision. Our children can ride their bikes over and use it. We live right across the street from the park. And I feel that renters typically have less incentive to keep neighborhoods clean and safe. And since the park is going to be directly adjacent to this complex, I feel that the safety and cleanliness of the park will suffer. So I'm asking you not to vote to rezone the property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Weter.
Hi, I'm Mike Weeder, 1400 Beacon Drive. I am also opposed to this rezoning for all the reasons I've heard at the last meeting and tonight. Also, I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to keep it brief. Allward Street currently does not have any curb and gutter. The developer will build in their own roads, and I'm assuming there will be no curb and gutter in there, within their development, nor connection to the city's storm sewer. What will happen when we keep getting rains like we're getting? Where's that water going to go? Are the 2 retention ponds to the north going to handle all this overflow? That park, as my wife said, that park is very well used, and I can just see by looking out our window and seeing where that that development's going to be and what's going to happen to that park. So I'm strongly against this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim McPhillips.
Tim McPhillips, 1410 Timber Ridge Trail in the Grandview Heights. I think this is a first to have a Detroit Lions fan speaking in Watertown, Wisconsin.
We'll allow it.
And
this
I just
one
gave
time.
my address, so.
Yeah. What was that one more time?
Yeah. I am opposed to the Allward project as well. What I wanted to focus my attention on is the term I keep hearing, for the greater good. I lived here for 11 years through high school and college, moved away for 15 years in California, I've been back here for the last 2. In California, this was such a neat little term used to tell you your taxes are going up and you're going to like it. The 3 questions I have, no you can't answer. How do we define the greater good? Who gets to set that definition? What are the metrics? I can tell you this is not for my greater good, for my wallet, for my family, for the neighborhood, for my neighbors. Who gets to define that? It seems to become, the definition is set by elected officials with a very relative scale of what that definition is, which is usually we want this to pass. Second question I want to ask, who is all contributing to this greater good that keeps being thrown around? Us, the taxpayers, will, as our taxes continue to go up, which ironically, of all places, California, I have lower property taxes there than I do here. But who is contributing? I know what us taxpayers are going to contribute. Our taxes, come on, be a team player, citizens of Grandview Heights. But what is the city contributing to the greater good? What is the developer contributing to the greater good? We have a drawing that looks like military barracks right now. And then there's a silent entity that has not said much. on what their greater good they're contributing to, is what is the school district doing to contribute to this greater good? This is where I'm most frustrated. Because they cannot manage their budget and their finances, and our taxes get to go up because of it, they're selling this property that was donated to them, and it's a great cash cow for them. But what frustrates me is, as much as they're putting on us the burden to pay for this and to make this happen, what has the school district done? They couldn't even use a Watertown realtor for the sale of this property. They went to Janesville. To me, that's insulting to the city and to the citizens of Watertown. So please, I ask that you not vote for the Allward project.
Thank you.
Dave Frawling.
Dave Froling, 515 Oak Park Avenue. I serve on the Dodge County Board, and I also represent this district where the development is. I also serve on the Workforce Development Board for South Central Wisconsin. And when we talk to current employers, prospective employers, everything we hear consistently is a shortage of workforce housing. Market rate workforce housing. Please note that I did not say low-income subsidized housing. We're talking about market rate housing that we can support with the jobs that are available here. This project satisfies much of that need. Our employers indicated to us that they can generate good family supporting jobs and can attract quality employees to this area, but more housing is needed. Watertown can and should be the main economic engine for Dodge and Jefferson County and the surrounding area. We have quality employers, we have quality of life opportunities, and with this project we will add to the variety of housing options, which allows us to expand the excellent workforce that we have. This makes for a vibrant community. This spreads the cost of services over a larger base, which benefits all of us, whether you've been here all of your life or 47 years like Judy and me, or if you're contemplating relocating here. Tonight, we need to decide whether to move our community forward to succeed in the future or be satisfied with the status quo and watch others thrive and pass us by. I urge you to support this and move the project forward. Thank you for your time and thank you for your work that you do for the citizens of Watertown.
Thank you.
Laura, and I don't want to butcher your last name, so I'll just have you state it.
Oh, one more. Okay, she's for the annexation. Is that right? Annexation? Okay, so we'll hold her to the next one. She'll be on the top now. Anyone else, Megan? Okay. And let me just take a peek. We see if there's anyone that would like to comment remotely. It looks like it's all our city team and then Alder Blanky. We do have another opportunity at the end of our meeting for public comment as well. So, you're almost up, Laura. So let's move to our public hearing. This is a public hearing for Graymar LLC and RJAB LLC. This is an annexation request for N9009 County Road A. I will open that public hearing. The clerk does have names, but normally in public hearings, we just ask anyone who would like to come to the microphone and just state your name and address.
Eric Kluge, 915 Casey Drive. First, just to put it out there, the 53 homes in Hep Heights are 100% against the annexation. I have a list of reasons we'll go through, but first I just wanted to say me and my wife built our house 6 years ago with this dream of a view. We're on Casey Drive. Our backyard overlooks the potential annexation, and when we built, we walked up and we looked at different lots, we looked at different builders. We ended up using a builder in Watertown, and we fell in love. So this annexation could be a chance that we're gonna lose that love for our neighborhood. The big topics that we have, we've met as a group, we've met with our aldermen. The number one probably topic is the rainwater mitigation. Many residents in our neighborhood have severe issues with rainwater after the current developments or the latest developments of Hep Heights. There's literal rivers coming through people's yards. There's water that is standing that's never been there before this development has been finished. So that's a big one. The lack of parks that we would have with an additional 48 homes in this area. The only park that's close by is Grinwald Park. You have to walk down Highway A to get there. I don't know if anybody's driven on Highway A lately, but try taking a family of 4 down that, walking down that road. It's just not safe. So lack of parks is a big one. The increase of cars. So with 48 homes, did a little research. Average Wisconsin home has 2.4 cars. So we're talking about adding 115 cars to our neighborhood, all going through 2 streets. Linda Lane and Casey Drive to get to that area where the 48 homes would be. Majority of them on Linda Lane because of how the development would be. So we're talking a lot more traffic in a already kind of tight area with one little Perryway Road to get to all that. So that's another huge, and then let's see what else. Oh, the lack of high-paying jobs in the city. This development is not going to be a $200,000 house. These are going to be $300,000 to $400,000 homes. Tax rates right now, our interest rates are 6, 7, 8%. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to have a $50,000, $60,000 job and afford one of these homes. It's just not realistic unless that's the only thing you do is live in your home. That means you're not going to go and support the community or go out and do the beer walks and all that kind of fun stuff that downtown has to offer. They're going to be basically mortgage locked. So those are other things to think about. We're talking about these jobs and everybody wants to get a job and come to town, but at $50,000, it's just not feasible. And then for overall, the quality of life that this neighborhood is going to go through for the next 3 to 5 years. As they build, we're going to have dust, construction, all that. And for me, we just got over it. So they just finished the Hep Heights neighborhood, just got over construction. We got a year break, not even. We're going to have 6 months break, and we're going to turn around and have this go all over again. So I will end it on that. I know there's a lot of people behind me that want to talk and kind of reiterate the same thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. My first time.
Okay, I'm Bill Hagen. I live just down the street from Eric at 917 Casey Drive. First of all, I'd like to say I agree with everything that he touched on, and I have a few other points to make on my own. The traffic issue, if you look at the plan that the company, to be named later, that it's going to do the development here, there is no access point at all out to Highway A. So as Eric said, everything is going to be coming through on Perry and Linda and Casey Drive. And now that that community has finished, there are a lot more kids riding their bikes and being outside playing, which I think we can all agree is a good thing, and not inside playing video games. I'm just worried about those kids. I don't have kids that age anymore, but again, construction traffic and just traffic when it is finished, like he said, at least 115 cars coming through there on their way back and forth to work. He mentioned the cost of these homes. They're going to be over $400,000. The latest home to sell in our subdivision, the last one that just completed, is pending contract for $399,000. So these new homes are going to be over $400,000. At current interest rates, with 20% down, it's going to be $2,800 with taxes. If they only put 10% down, it's $3,200. I don't see anybody working in this community unless they're at the hospital or something like that, or an executive at Fisher Barton or any of those places that are going to be pulling down the kind of money to be able to afford these homes. So what we're talking about is turning Watertown into a commuter community, where people are living here, but they're getting in their cars and they're driving elsewhere, which means on their way home they're going to be stopping and spending money instead of spending money in our community. So with all due respect to the people that were worried about jobs here, because we don't have any housing, I would say we gotta go the other way around. I think we need to get the jobs before we have the housing. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know, I'm not on those committees. But the people that you're talking about working at Marquardt or working through your workforce development are not gonna be in a position, I don't think, to even afford the rentals at those Allward properties, which are gonna be probably $2,000 a month. So I don't see the point to either of these projects, actually. As far as the rainwater issue, I don't believe any of you or any of you on the planning commission actually came out and looked at our neighborhood. I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, please say so, that whoever wants to do this just came in, laid something out in front of you, and you all said, hey, tax revenue, $250,000 a year. Sure, why not? Instead of coming out and looking at our properties, the back edge of our property on Casey Drive, Eric's and everybody else's, there's a berm behind our property that goes up to the farm field behind us, 10, 12 feet high. Imagine where that rainwater is gonna come off to when that farm field is no longer there and now it's concrete homes and sump pumps and everything like that. I already have issues with water in our backyard when we get heavy rains. So I guess I would invite anybody, before we do any voting on this, to actually come out and see where this is gonna be. I really don't think anybody did, and if they did, they never contacted anybody in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin Kuyath at 906 Casey Drive. I agree with everything that they just said, especially the rainwater mitigation. I mean, we have a literal river running through our backyard every time it rains, so just don't think it should go through.
Thank you.
I am Laura Janjieski, 917 Ridge Court. I'm also in the Hep Heights subdivision, and I am in complete support with the two gentlemen in my subdivision that spoke. And rainwater is a big issue because my backyard floods into my neighbors' yards that do live in Casey Drive, and it's an issue.
Thank you.
Very nervous.
We're a friendly bunch. I try to smile the whole time, so just stay locked in here. I'll keep
Kathy
us-
Huggin,
I'll keep it
907
going.
Casey Drive. I just have like one question. Why? Why do we need to annex this land into the city? Why didn't the town of Watertown want it? Or why can't they take over? If when we annex it and we want to build all of these properties, you're talking more infrastructure, more roads, more things that need to be maintained by the city of Watertown, which means more taxes. Our taxes are probably some of the highest in the state. We pay ridiculous amount of taxes. I still haven't figured out why, but okay, we pay them, and this is just going to increase them even more. So that was my first one. Again, with everything that they just said. And, you know, I made notes and I still can't even read them. But I guess the other thing is, why do we want to bring all these people into the city? I mean, people in the city are great if they stay in the city and support the city. But again, we're supporting a commuter opportunity here, especially out there that's so close to the Highway 26. They jump on the freeway, boom, they're in Madison, they're in Milwaukee, they're out of Watertown. And by the time they get back in Watertown, they've already done their dinners or meetings or whatever after work, and they come home and they go right to their house. No money is spent here in Watertown. So I don't see any benefit in that building, excuse me, that building of the subdivision out there. So I'm opposed to that annexation.
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.
Just about your presentation. I'm not talking about your comments. Just I feel like I needed to qualify that. Yeah. And I really did try to smile the whole time. Anyone else that wants to comment during this public hearing? Yes, sir.
I've only got 27 pages here, so it shouldn't take long.
There's a 3-minute timer, sir.
My name is Terry Lishka. My wife and I, we live at 916 Casey Drive. It's in Hep subdivision. I have a degree in residential design and construction technology, and after 48 years in the construction business, my wife and I decided to retire in this area, and we built a new home and moved here, and we came to the Watertown area. We chose it because every time we came here, the friendly people that we met, it was so congenial, and we just loved everything that we met. And again, it was a progressive city. We see a lot of things that you are doing the YMCA addition, the new fire department, all necessary to have some growth. And the way I look at it, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. So, but along with that growth that you do, there are certain boxes I think you need to check off. And as far as this project of annexing this land, for example, you don't want to develop something just for the sake of growth. You must have a benefit for all of the people in the area, in the town. And I think in this case, maybe any subdivision that might be built, it should be done with like local builders, several local builders, because they have a tendency to use local subcontractors. They use local vendors. They employ local people. So if this is going to go through or anything, we need to get Watertown involved. More people that live here, do the work, and so on. So that's, I think, one of the boxes that needs to be checked off. Another one, infrastructure. For example, your sewer, if this goes through, is your treatment plant capable of handling this? And then on the proposal that you have here, it's showing 2 more stubbed roads beyond this. So that means there's a future beyond this, another maybe 40, 50, 100 homes beyond this. So has this been looked at and checked off by everybody to make sure that we're capable of handling that without a huge expense? Same thing with the water. Are your water mains capable of handling the additional homes? Will we need to drill another well because we need some more water? Is the water pressure going to stay high enough to support these? So does that mean we need to spend millions of dollars on a new water tower to keep the water pressure up? These are all things that need to be considered when you do this. Electrical, are there going to be street lights throughout this whole area? And it's just something that needs to be addressed and fed back to people in the town so we know what's going on. As the other people spoke, the roads and the traffic, the way it is now, these streets, they're being pounded to death. They'll have to be replaced if you keep running this heavy construction traffic down it. So I think that's another thing that needs to be done. Another thing is, like they mentioned, a grading plan. In the HEP subdivision, there was no grading taken into consideration, and all these people with flooded basements. My backyard has standing water in after a rainstorm. So this has to be figured out and make sure that it's done. We can't just, let's annex this land and just let it go. It has to be planned, and you people in the city are the ones that have to make sure it's done properly. And then another thing, environment. I don't know if any kind of environmental impact study has been done on this area at all, but you have to remember, this is a rural area that we're taking over. It's a rural setting where wildlife live. They were here before us, and now you want to take over that area, and what's going to happen? There's no nature preserve corridor for these animals to move through from one, let's say, safety zone to another. Right now we have deer walking down the middle of our street. So what's going to happen, if that isn't considered? And again, getting back to the roads, there's, like I say, on I believe it's Perry Way and Linda Lane. It's like a hill or a crested hill, a very dangerous intersection. And if you bring more traffic in there, you're going to have some really bad accidents sitting there. So it's just, there's so much that needs to be considered, and we want to make sure that you are addressing all of that and feeding that back to us so we know what's going on. We don't want just all of a sudden, oh, it's annexed, these people are developing it, and you had no say. So please, please, consider those boxes. If those aren't checked off, no, it's not a goal. It's a non-starter. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to comment during the public hearing? Yes, ma'am.
Any subject? Albert?
Nope, right now we're in the public hearing for the annexation. Yep. Sorry about that. Anybody else on this topic? And I don't see anyone remote. So I'm going to close that public hearing. And then we do have action items for both of those topics. So normally at this point, I invite people to feel free to stand up and leave, because most people do. But we do have action items for both of those later in our agenda. So with that, we're going to move on to some other business temporarily. First is reports. You all have the Finance Committee minutes from July 8th, Park and Rec from July 15th, the RDA from July 17th, Board of Health from June 4th, Plan Commission from both July 8th and 22nd, the Downtown Main Street Task Force from July 24th, Public Works from July 23rd, and then licensing from July 10th. Does anybody have comments or questions on any of those minutes? All right, very good. Then let's move to communications and recommendations. Our first item here is our August employee recognition. 2 of our police officers couldn't be with us this evening, but we do want to acknowledge Scott Kind, who's been with the police department for 15 years, and Alex Jeffers, who's been with the police department for 5 years. And then with us this evening is, and I'll invite you up, is Lisa Schwartz. She has been with Human Resources for 5 years. So come on up, Lisa. For joining us. Come right here. All right. So I am honored to be able to be the one to talk about Lisa and to highlight Lisa for her service to the city for the last 5 years. Lisa is our HR coordinator, and in that role, she provides important services to our city team. From onboarding new employees to offboarding employees, wellness to insurance, benefits to safety, and everything in between, Lisa takes on a variety of topics and always does so with a service mentality. This service mentality isn't a stretch for Lisa. Lisa served 20 years in the National Guard. She retired in 2020 as a staff sergeant in personnel services, supporting the CERFP. And I did have to ask Lisa to send me a Google of what that was. So for those of you that may not know, the CERFP is a National Guard unit that responds to incidences involving chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and high-yield explosive hazards. SERFP, there we go. In doing this work, Lisa was, during this time, she was deployed to Kuwait for 14 months. Lisa has served not just our country and our community, but also all of us here at the city day in and day out in a way that people don't always recognize the value of, but as a leader, I know really how important it is. HR is one of the most critical pieces of an organization and organizational management, and Lisa was really our first person, believe it or not, in this role. Prior to Lisa, we had no standard, oh man, I normally don't have this big of an audience, so I don't want to scare any of you. But prior to Lisa, we had no standardized forms, no HR policies on process, no recruitment cohorts across the entire organization, no enterprise wellness program, no safety grant program, no quotes in the break room or pick-me-up questions written on whiteboards. Lisa has brought our city team incredible stability and cultural enhancements. In her personal life, she may not love public conversations or waving at me when she's in the car, but at work, she is outgoing. She cares deeply about our city team. She has a gregarious laugh. She keeps the team active and engaged and always has our city and our city's team's best interests at heart. Lisa has made a tremendous impact on our city in just 5 years, and I'm just so grateful that she continues to serve this city every day. So please, you have a great crowd for this one. Please give her a really great round of applause.
I'm actually going to bolt on something here while you sit down, and it's been an absolute pleasure to watch sort of the maturity of human resources as a discipline within the city for a lot of the reasons that were stated here. That's one of the things that I think has rather quietly reduced the amount of risk that the city has in terms of dealing with employee issues, hiring, firing, promotions, all of that stuff is an area that can cause issues, and being able to see that the city has really sort of tamped that risk down through the use of basically professional HR practices that I think a lot of us in the corporate world are very familiar with is just a fantastic thing to see. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Equally as exciting is the Watertown Fire Department June monthly report. Who has questions or comments that we can give back to the chief? All right. All right, then let's go. Andrew, are you here? Andrew Breyer. He's in his office. So hopefully in just a moment, a very tall guy is going to appear in the doorway to give us an update on the Main Street Bridge. He normally would be in the room, but we had such a full house tonight. There he is. Let's all look at him awkwardly. There he goes. All right. So Andrew is our Director of Public Works and our city engineer. And it's been a little bit since we provided you all an update on the Main Street Bridge. Andrew.
Good evening all. To recap, the Main Street Memorial Bridge project started.
It does seem like it's off, but it's green? No. Can you switch with him? I told you it would happen. Didn't I? I said to that gentleman, I said, you just wait, this mic will stop working.
All right.
There we go.
Better? Good?
Yep, thank
Okay.
you.
So to recap, the Main Street Cole Memorial Bridge project started in late April of 2024. This is a Wisconsin Department of Transportation WisDOT contract. WisDOT is contractual with Zenith Tech of the Wallbeck Group, or ZTI. The bridge contract was awarded to ZTI for just under $4 million. So the engineering division has been attending the weekly progress meetings held by WisDOT. At these meetings, representatives from the state, the city, and the contractor are present, and bridge work is progressing. So to date, ZTI has dismantled the 1931 bridge. They've set up a cofferdam on the west side and is currently erecting the west abutment. Once that west abutment concrete is poured, ZTI will move over to the east side to begin work in constructing the east abutment. Once both abutments are in place, ZTI will begin assembling the new bridge superstructure. So that includes things like the beams and the deck and the railings. WisDOT reported at the most recent progress meeting that there are no delays and the contract completion dates remain intact. So the bridge is slated to be open to traffic no later than November 27th of this year, with final completion in spring of 2025. That's for things like final pavement marking and final pavement. They might have to put some temporary pavement down before plants close. But if they don't get to that this year, things will be wrapped up in spring of next year. And if anything changes, the state has assured us that they'll notify the city and that there are no contract delays to date. If and when any contract delays or changes will be made, I'll come before this body with an update. So with that, I'll open it up to questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, I think so. Good news. Awesome. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to new business. You have to review and take action on the election inspector appointments provided to you by the clerk. Is there a motion on these? Mr. Board. Motion by Mr. Board, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, very good. Next then is committee appointments. There is just one airport commission appointment for your approval. Mr. Smith.
I'd move for the approval of your appointment of Tom Hahn to the Airport Commission.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second to that? Seconded by Mr. Lampy. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious to know, is there a process, is there a formal process when these positions become open so that the public is aware of them and can throw their hat in the ring?
Yeah,
What is that process?
Yep. So when I started in this role, we opened up a online form. So if you go to the website, go to my page, there's a way you can submit your interest. If we have existing submitted interest for a committee, we pull from there. If we don't, then we try to advertise positions, whether it's on social media. Sometimes if they're specific, like historic preservation and downtown design, like needs people that have design, architecture, then sometimes we'll go specifically to folks that are suggested by the commission. But generally speaking, we pull from that list, and if we don't have someone, then we would advertise. This one in particular was submitted. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Actually, he submitted on the form, and then he came to my office a few times, making sure we got the form. So, yes. Good question, though. Anyone else on this one? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, next is miscellaneous business. You have the payroll summaries from July 10th to July 23rd. Questions on any of those from anybody?
I do have a question on that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm noticing that the police year-to-date overtime costs are creeping up towards the overtime budget for the year. I was wondering, are you down? Are you shorthanded, or what are the reasons for that?
Come back to this with a better explanation. We've had the RNC, we had some major events. Basically, it's something that I just carefully watch, and as we need people, we put them out there. One of those situations where we just can't not police. So at times when that's the situation, then we have to do that. But I could come back to you with some more specifics if you'd like.
And Chief, for the RNC, we will get reimbursed.
Correct,
Just
yeah.
wanted to
Reimbursements come back to
tack
that
that
as
on.
well. Yep.
Does dispatch overtime show up in this line? No, okay.
All right, thank you.
And I'll also jump in with one more thing. Yes, we were down one officer this entire year.
Oh, okay.
We've got people on family medical leave that requires overtime, those sorts of it's really normal stuff that we just see throughout the year. If you look back historically as well, this is a pretty typical thing where overtime budget, hope for a low number, but if we go over, we have to make it up in the budget in some other area as well.
And Mark, do you want to just chime in on the quarterly review that you do, where you, to Chief's point, where we know we may be over, we ensure we're under then on salaries?
Starting at the 6th month of the year, I do a monthly review of all accounts, and department heads hear from me, and we work together on trying to figure out how are we going to internally modify that budget. If an account is over, then where are you going to take that money from to make it an underage and all. So those processes are underway now that we're in the second half of the year.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else on this report? Okay, then let's move to licenses. The first is a licensing memo from the city clerk. Our first action item is to review and take action on an application for a Class B malt and liquor license for Gas House LLC, doing business as Gas House, with Jesse Vick, the agent. This is for licensing year July 1, 24 to June 30th, 2025. Is there a motion for this one? Mr. Smith.
Excuse me, I'd move for the approval of this application for a Class B malt and liquor license, conditioned, as the memo suggests, on the surrender of the current license and the approval by the health department following their inspection.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Second by Mr. Moldenhauer. Any questions on this one?
I have one.
Yes, Mr. Blanky.
I believe there was actually a third condition on this one that came out of licensing board, and that was that the current agent provide proof of their lease to the city clerk.
Have you gotten that, Megan? Would you be fine amending that to include that third one?
Yes, and it is not relevant what the start date is. It's just that if it isn't September 1st, we need to see the new lease, which would make it permissible for that to begin. So the lease is a significant factor.
Okay. And you're fine with that as well? Okay, very good. Thanks, Mr. Blanky. Mr. Lampy?
So this wasn't directly mentioned in the memo, but one of the things that was put in some written comments was essentially the transition of the old alcohol inventory to the new business as part of the transfer. Do we have any rules within the city in terms of those requirements?
Megan?
We provide them the DOR form for a stock transfer that they're supposed to submit directly to the DOR.
Okay, so we're not a part of that. We're just, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? Comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, let's go to our next. This is to review and take action on a temporary premise amendment application for Carapew for local waters, 109 South 3rd Street. This is for Blacktoberfest on Saturday, September 21st, during the hours from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. And it does look like there's a few conditions for this one. Are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion.
Would you make it with those? Oh, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to table until after Public Works Public Safety has a chance to review this
because I don't like making conditional approvals on another committee that hasn't had a chance to go through the information yet. So I'd motion table to the next council meeting after public welfare has a chance to go through everything.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay, so that would fail for lack of second. Is there a motion to take action? Mr. Lampe?
I would take action to approve the temporary premises amendment for Blocktoberfest on the 21st, conditional on the 3 bullets that are listed in the memo on the outside sales area, the outside exits, and the special event approval by Public Safety and Welfare.
Okay, and can I just clarify your first condition? You're providing approval, and that approval is providing an exemption for the outside sales area. Was that your, I think that was your intent?
Yeah, it's my intent.
Okay.
It's
Is that phrased okay for you guys? All right, is there a second to that? Who was that? Second by Mr. Bartz. We have a motion by Mr. Lampe and a second by Mr. Bartz. Yes, sir.
So on the comments, I guess I do want to go back and address the motion to table. I mean, we have done a few things where we've been able to issue approvals basically for the alcohol license where they aren't happening exactly in parallel with the special event permit. The two are, I mean, I'm currently subject of one of those examples where those things didn't necessarily take place in that order where the special event was approved, and then we went back and did the alcohol approval. The other thing is this is the third year that this event is taking place. Blocktoberfest is something that happened in a smaller area in the first year. That was about the size of a parking lot. Last year, that was widened out to the street, which was basically the area that you see depicted on the maps here. And this basically is a rinse and repeat from what I can tell of last year, so I have 0 problems at all with it.
Okay. Anyone else on this one? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, very good. Then let's move to ordinances. Our first is ordinance 24-17. This is to adopt the amendments to the 2019 City of Watertown Comprehensive Plan for 1310 Allred Street. This is here from me and the Plan Commission on its first reading. Is there a motion for this one? Mr. Lampe?
I move to approve.
Motion by Lampe, second by Board. Discussion.
Is the developer here?
Excuse me?
Is the developer here?
They are here.
Okay.
Do you want to ask questions first, or do you want to hear comments
I'll
first?
hear
From Ms. Davis? Ms. Davis?
The ordinance before us tonight is recommending a change to the comprehensive plan. Keep in mind, this identical ordinance was presented to us on February 6th of this year and did not pass at that time, with 8 council members voting in opposition. But it is back again before us tonight. The comprehensive plan is required by state law and is a vision casting document. You can kind of think of it as a strategic action plan for city growth. The plan is intended to provide a rational basis for local land use decision making. It's intended to be a proactive document, not a reactive document, changing in response to each knock on the door by developers. For this reason, the plan is intentionally difficult to modify. As I said, the comprehensive plan is required by state law, and the law also requires public participation in deciding on the city's future vision. Since January of this year, the public has been intensely and vigorously involved in the participation process. We have received a few emails written in support of the change, but the majority of the public feedback has been in opposition. They have written emails, signed a petition, taken off early from work to speak publicly in opposition to changing the comprehensive plan. Why are they going to all this trouble? These residents understand that the Allred Street development has the potential to impact every resident in Watertown in every district, every single city department, and every single staff member. Let me see if I can demonstrate how. Let's take a look at some of the frequently heard comments made by the proponents of the Heartland Shores project. Here's the first one, quote, "The only way multifamily developments can happen in Watertown these days is with TIF money." In the proposed pay-go TIF, Heartland Shores will build 8 massive barrack-style apartment buildings and 25 single-family condos. The property value will be assessed and a property tax bill will be paid. Then the city of Watertown will turn around
Ms.
and
Davis, we aren't talking about TIF tonight.
No, but we are talking about multifamily, and in order to talk about the multifamily, the information needs to be covered.
But everything at this point would be skeptical. We've never produced a TIF evaluation. So I just want to be careful. The city attorney can weigh in.
My
I just want
comments
to be
are
mindful of what's.
My comments are directly in response
Ms. Davis.
to the zoning for multifamily. I'd like to continue them.
Ms. Davis, I will be more than happy to let you to continue those comments. I'm just providing you a benchmark. We have to be mindful of not talking about TIF because it's not what we noticed tonight. What we noticed was zoning and comp plan. That's all I'm providing to you. I wasn't going to tell you you can keep going. I was just reminding you of our obligation to meet public meeting notice.
Right.
And we didn't notice anything about TIF agreements. That's all I'm sharing.
I understand that, and my focus here is on the multifamily and the changing of the comprehensive plan and all
Perfect.
that will be involved with that. So as I was saying, we don't know, the city of Watertown will turn around and pay a portion of the property taxes back to the company over a period of many years. This is just typical. This is broadly speaking as to how TIDs work. And at this point, this body does not have information about how much that would be or how much the developers are asking for. Here's the next quote that we've heard frequently. This will get a currently tax-exempt property back on the tax rolls. This statement is at best disingenuous. While it is true that technically the property will go on the tax rolls, the statement leaves out a very, very important detail. The property tax will not impact the general fund for about 20 years. Instead, that property tax that is collected is held in a TIF fund. For the next 20 years or so, not 1 cent from the Allward Street development will be used in the general fund to fund things like the streets, parks, the library, the police. You kind of get the idea. Consider this. If the school district in Heartland Shores, if their purchase deal goes forward and a TIF agreement is put in place, the city will essentially be buying the land from a fellow taxing entity, the school district, many times over for the next 20 years in the form of a tax increment payments to the Heartland Shores developers. It's just really a bad deal for the citizens of Watertown. Here's the next quote that we've heard. TIDs don't raise property taxes, and that's just categorically false. We can take a look at it logically. Should the Allward Street development go through, we could expect that there could be 350, 400 or so people living in that development. Those individuals will, of course, want to take advantage of all the wonderful things that Watertown has to offer, all the wonderful amenities. They'll want their streets plowed in the winter and their street lights turned on. They'll want to have access to the police. But remember, if that agreement goes through and if it is a TID, that development is not contributing anything to the general fund. As a result of this increased demand for city resources, there are really only 2 possible outcomes. Outcome number 1 is that the already stretched city staff and resources will be stretched even thinner to accommodate the increased demand on resources. Those resources will be thin not only for those living in the Allward Street development, but also for all of Watertown residents. That's outcome number 1. Possible outcome number 2 is when budget time rolls around, department heads will come and say, look, we absolutely have to have more city staff and resources. And there will be valid reasons for this. So additional staff and resources will be added to the budget increases, and property taxes go up. In Watertown right now, it is likely that you are already paying additional taxes for the current 5 TIDs in Watertown.
Ms. Davis, this is all TID so far. I need you to get to the rezone.
Well, what I'm doing is responding to the information that's been provided to us.
That's not what's on the agenda tonight. And I'm not trying to be a stickler. For those of you that don't come, this isn't a normal thing. We have to speak to what's on the agenda. Stephen, if I'm off and you disagree, please let me know. We have to be, we're talking about comp plans and rezones.
Here's why I'd like to add it. In the packet tonight, we had information from the developers, including all of their plans. But there was also 2 pages in which the developers themselves mentioned a TIF. And so in response to that, I'd like to have the opportunities to speak to it also.
I think I've given you the opportunity to speak to it. I'm just trying to protect the city. We are responsible to public meeting law. So you're the city attorney, you make the choice. I'm uncomfortable limiting your speech, but I'm also uncomfortable putting the city in a sticky position. So it's up to Stephen. Well, it's technically up to me, but Stephen, what do you think?
I believe it's up to the mayor.
Yeah.
Sorry. The rules for common council procedure do provide that council members are to limit their discussion to topics that are on the agenda. And discussing topics that have not been properly noticed can result in a meeting violation.
I don't feel great about it. So can we get there? I feel uncomfortable talking about something that wasn't noticed.
Okay. Well, I'll go on to my next point. And again, all of the information that I'm sharing is information that has been shared with us through numerous meetings in regards to the rezoning of this to multifamily. So these have all been arguments that have been laid out. And what I'd like to do in my response is address some of those. So that's why I'm addressing them now in my comments tonight. It's been my first opportunity to speak to that information that we've heard in multiple meetings. So that's where I'm going with this.
If you feel comfortable taking on the risk, you go for it.
Okay, why don't I go on to the next point, and then as we have time, we may circle back. My next point, and I do want to spend some time on this, we actually had a citizen mention this as well. Over and over again, we have heard this quote: we have to consider the greater good. The greater good is a talking point that's been shared many times in meetings, in emails by proponents of the Allward Street development. The phrase, the greater good, has been really bothersome to me. I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. And for any student of history, the phrase should literally send shivers up and down your spine. We know from history that this phrase, the greater good, has been used as a tool for social manipulation and control by government officials and leaders and people in power. History tells us that placing the good of society above the good of individuals tends towards some really unfortunate outcomes. The greater good is collectivism. It's the idea that the individual must sacrifice his or her private interests for the sake of society, or in this case, for apartments in Watertown. These residents that have spoken in opposition to the Allward Street rezoning to multifamily are solid, good people. They've worked hard their whole lives, raised families, obeyed laws, and paid their taxes. The greater good of building a $30 million housing development is not superior to the rights and desires of the flesh and blood citizens that have built the city. They are not motivated by insensitivity to the housing shortage plight and difficulties of others. They understand that there is a housing shortage, but they recognize that each of us have been granted the freedom to pursue our own good. When we do so, a prosperous Watertown is built from the bottom up rather than the top down. As individuals living in Watertown, they have the right to property, the right to work, and the right to retain the fruits of their labor. So here's the next quote. Multifamily housing on the Allward Street property is a good fit for the neighborhood. The comprehensive plan is intended to be a strategic planning document for future growth. We talked about that just a second ago. Changes to the comprehensive plan should be made strategically, independent of development offers that may or may not pan out. And we all know that there have been several development deals that have not panned out this year for various reasons. The Grandview Heights subdivision, adjacent to the Allward Street property, has been a very successful subdivision. It has grown steadily and incrementally, weathering the economy and the ups and downs over the last 20 plus years, all the while contributing the whole time to the general fund. To date, the subdivision is almost completely built out, and there are many who would love to build there if plots were available. If the Allward Street property is turned over to multifamily and relegated to a TID for the next 20 years, the desirable expansion of single-family homes in this area is over. It's done. No further expansion. That incremental, steady growth and the increased contributions to the general fund that this city has come to depend on is over in this area. Now, there are those who say, we don't have a single-family offer on the table. We just have this one multifamily offer. To that, I would just say, yet. You don't have a single-family offer on the table yet. But our job tonight as council members is to make strategic city growth decisions independent of developer offers. On Tuesday, May 7th, we had a committee of the whole meeting where Heartland Shores shared their concept plan. The mayor asked us at the end of that meeting, quote, I just need to know from you, is this dead in the water or should we continue the conversation? No formal vote was taken at that time, but council members agreed to, quote, continue the process, with several expressing opposition and or reservations. This vote tonight is a continuation of that process, which is what we agreed to do on May 7th. Now remember, they have told us the only way multifamily developments like this happen in Watertown is with TIF money. That was information that was provided to us in this discussion. So in that formula then, multifamily equals TID. Make no mistake then, a vote tonight to change the comprehensive plan for this Allward Street property to multifamily is also, in effect, a simultaneous vote to develop a TID, to raise property taxes, and it's a vote to add additional load to our already stretched city team. Listen, I've listened extensively in this process, gone to a lot of meetings, asked lots of questions, spoken with individuals from all sides of this issue. It's our turn as council members to lead in this situation, to give clear direction. And our direction should be that we are not interested at this time in changing the zoning for that particular property to multifamily, because we're not interested in the resulting TID that will come.
Thank you. Yes.
So I was the one supporter of this exact measure when it came up a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months now. If anything, my support for this measure has actually strengthened over the past couple of weeks. We continue to hear from employers of all sizes. I've heard, from a lot of larger employers in town here. That does include the hospital, that does include our public school system, that does include the city, that includes manufacturers, that includes a lot of builders, all of whom say that they are having problems locating their employees in the city. And in fact, I know there's a number of people sitting in this room that basically have not found a place to live here in Watertown, and that might be their preference. So clearly, we have a workforce housing problem. The implication also then essentially that we're going to build some new facilities for, essentially we're bringing in nurses, we're bringing in social workers, we're bringing in teachers, machinists. These are all families with good contributing jobs, and I resent the implication that our parks are not good enough for those types of families. The developers have brought to us really a well-refined proposal at this point. They've really done an excellent job in responding to residential requests. Specifically, they looked at moving the multifamily areas basically as far away from existing residents as possible. And in fact, if you look across the street from where those multifamily areas are right now, it's essentially adjacent to other multifamily across the street. So you have a like-for-like situation. In addition, they also added some additional green space and another condo strip that basically goes along the housing developments there. Future development, but also another way of essentially tempering and a drop-off from sort of the high-density housing going down to what is currently the single-family housing that we have there, which kind of leads to one of the questions that did come up in I think another conversation, which was regarding why are we looking essentially at changing the entire parcel to multifamily? And that's basically a technical definition. I'm kind of looking over to some of the folks who know this a little bit better. I think there's a technical definition that basically says even condos have to fall under the multifamily zoning piece, which gets us back to essentially the two different parts that we're looking at today. One is which we're looking at the future zoning of this parcel, which is currently zoned institutional, prison, schools, a bunch of different uses that we could potentially put there. And the zoning completely does not agree with that today. The zoning somehow ended up as single family. Neither one of those uses is going forward. And it's not for lack of trying. There's been all sorts of attempts being made within the city, within the school district, to find an appropriate use that would fit, for example, single family. And the school district obviously has decided they're not moving forward with a school for that area. So this proposal that comes to us is the result of months, if not years, of careful negotiation back and forth between the city, the developer, and the school system in terms of what could we actually build at that location to finally alleviate workforce housing in the city. There's some additional issues. I do want to recognize the folks that are bringing them up with regard to, let's say, water. We have stormwater as a function within the city. I believe that can be overcome. We have basic views in terms of what are we going to do with the other areas, the roads and other planning. And I can also tell you with assurance that strategic planning is something that the various departments that affect those areas do over time. And it's something that I also have a great deal of confidence that they can do. And finally, I do want to comment, not necessarily specific to this development, but other developments in the city. There have been attempts to engage many local builders. For example, if you look on the opposite end of town, where we were looking at building out a number of houses in conjunction with the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation. We have White Oak Builders, who is a local builder who is very much involved in that project. We've also, just for this project, for other projects, I've actually received letters and comments of support from other builders in the city, even though they may or may not necessarily get a piece of this business. They realize that, and I could almost parrot everything that Mr. Froling had to say when he came up and represented Dodge County a few minutes ago. But basically, all of this economic activity is absolutely vital to make sure that Watertown remains an economically viable engine and something that we can continue to, as I think a lot of you have said, we'd actually like to be able to work here and live here and make sure that this is a community that doesn't shrink in the future. And the only way to get there, and demographically I can tell you that household sizes continue to shrink, is to continue to build housing. And this is one of the valuable ways that we can do this, and we can do this by starting tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Wildenhauer?
In all of this tonight, and I agree with Alderperson Davis. I concur. Personally, I cannot see it out there. I just cannot see it out there. I don't think it fits out there. Everybody wants to have housing. I understand that. It's a good thing to have. You want housing. But that is such an attractive area out there, and I wish there was some other way we could approach this instead of, well, this isn't filling up fast enough, so we got to bring this in and get this in here so we can get people in here. Has anybody ever taken the time to look at possibly doing duplexes, really nice duplexes, something like that, instead of this multi-family stuff? In other words, trying to find a divide somewhere between where people on both sides could work together to find a common denominator. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my opinion. Otherwise, as a multifamily, I will not vote for this tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
A couple things. Attorney Cheesebro, can you clarify a point for me for noticing purposes? To address the concerns that the mayor had in regards to the TIF issue, the reason I see why Ms. Davis brought it up was related to point 11 on page 48, and it's mentioned on point 2 in the packet on page 50. So just a clarification to make sure that we're compliant with that purpose, since it is in the packet listed under this ordinance specifically.
So is the question,
Is it noticed properly since it's in the packet as part of the ordinance with the information provided to us?
it's not part of the ordinance. What's in the packet is information that was provided at Planning Commission.
Okay, so that's the clarification I had on that.
Well, unless you want to add something to that.
The packet wouldn't be what's noticed. The agenda is what's noticed and published.
Okay.
For that purpose.
All right, so I just wanted to clarify that purpose
Sure.
for that purpose. The other issue I have is, this isn't against our city staff, and I agree with the residents here who have issues with this, and I have the same issue that you have, is this is a school board issue, and to be clear, we have zero input and authority over the school district. They do what they want in spite of whatever we want. They're a completely separate entity, and they have a huge portion of our taxes, and I really wish they would have a representative here on this issue since they are the seller of the property. We're not. We're the ones in the middle, and we're the ones who take the heat rounds when things like this come up. And I'll throw them under the bus, and I don't care. Because they toss us under the bus every chance they get, and if they're not gonna show up, then so be it. Because we're taking the heat rounds for something we have zero control over. We can't control who they chose to use a realtor. We can't control they're selling it. We have zero control over that. The issue at hand is what we're gonna do with the rezoning and this is structured. The issue I've heard, number one, on both issues tonight is water. Water is a major issue for me. Having a dry basin in Watertown is a unicorn find. That's a true statement from what I've found looking at houses earlier before we bought ours. My backyard's an industrial park, so I get it's not the most attractive, but that's what it was in my budget at the time. To address the other issue in regards to the houses being $400,000 proposed, potentially, because we don't know, because they're not built yet, and we don't know if they're gonna get built, the average median home price in the US has over doubled in the last 5 years. So the average median home price is pushing $400,000. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. So when we're seeing these house prices locally, that's the median average across the country. That's not just us, that's flat out, they've doubled in 5 years. That's a lot of factors go into it. Wisconsin, to address the tax issue, is one of the top 10 heaviest tax states in the country. We can't control state taxes. We can't control federal taxes. What we can control is local taxes. And collectively, I would think in the last 5 years since I've been on the board, we've done an okay job of trying to keep them as low as possible and trying to keep the growth rate, increased taxes, proportionately lower to our peers in the other sections of the state with equal population size. And I think we've done a decent job of that. The reason I asked earlier if the builder's here is I want them to address the biggest issue in the room is the design issue that I heard a complaint from the residents and the water mediation. Because that has been the #1 complaint I've gotten in regards to both issues tonight is water mediation, the different roles in regards to how that's been going to be impacted. There is a note I'll point out in the packet. The original proposed numbers were over 220. The current proposal in our packets tonight is 128 apartments and 25 single residency for a total of 153. That's a 70-unit overall reduction into it. One of the other things I'd like to have the builder address is relation to the potential of an HOA and what the state ordinance is related to that and how they plan to mediate some of the concerns or address some of the concerns that are brought up tonight for this. The packet does show 3 different variations of this, and it has gotten significantly better, though the design, I would agree, does look like military barracks, and anyone who's been in those, they're cookie cutter, and they haven't changed in 50 or 60 years. I get it, but if they're going to be a condo style, I'd like the explanation of that as well. So we'll start with there, and we'll
I
go
was
from
gonna say,
there.
why don't we have him come up?
Yeah.
Because I was losing track.
Yeah, that's fine.
They're gonna need a microphone. Stephen, why don't you snag this one in case you need it? You can just hold on to that one. Mr. Schmid, can you give us where you'd like to start first, please?
So let's start with the biggest issue, which is water mediation, and compared to what's currently out there, how your plan addresses that in relation to current DNR statutes and EPA requirements in regards to water flow, and how you're going to mediate that with the topographical issue in regards to water flow with your property development with the average weight and water direction.
Sure. So, thank you again for having us tonight. Related to water, so keep in mind that this is a conceptual site plan that was provided to give some context to the overall project for the purposes of changing the comprehensive plan and zoning. We've not gone into a detailed plan development, had a site plan review from the Planning Commission. So we haven't gotten to the point of addressing all these issues because we're trying to figure out first if Watertown wants us to invest $40 million, in the northeast side. So this project will have more than 1 acre of disturbance, so it is subject to water quality and retention that is enforced by the Wisconsin DNR. We have a licensed engineer that will be designing this project that designs projects all over the state and will be subject to both the city's review and the state's review. So we're in all intentions to be fully compliant. Right now, the area is a farm field and it's not being farmed now, so whatever gradation's out there, that's kind of what happens. When we develop the property, if we have the opportunity to do that, we will be capturing all that water and detaining it and then disposing of it properly. So if anything, we should see an improvement out there because the water isn't going to just run as it does now. It will be captured and designed into the appropriate structures.
Excuse me, do we have Brian on the phone?
Brian is on vacation.
Oh, nuts.
Wait, what did you want?
It was a kind of a zoning question
Oh,
because
okay.
basically in terms of like what the standards are now versus what they were 10 years ago. I think there was like a revision somewhere in that
Well,
time frame, and I don't know when it is, but
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics. It's evolved over time, and if you look at the site plan, to the very right, that rectangle that has no definition in it, that's a storm pond that catches that whole neighborhood. And you see the 2 ponds to the south of that, as well as the existing wetland area in between that's being preserved. That's the storm retention pond that catches the what's left, about 18 acres of this development. And so you can see that area, that infrastructure is larger than what the existing neighborhood has. And this development is dwarfed by the size of that. So I think you're going to see a great improvement from stormwater perspective.
And so I get that, and I'm glad that you put the extra effort into the water retention because that is the biggest issue that I've gotten pushback on this project. But I'm looking at the proposal of, 8 multi-unit facilities a significantly larger green space, which I do appreciate seeing because having a space for dogs is a rarity in town, so it's a big deal, especially for people who have animals and dogs, along with the other single-family issues. I know the state sets forth a minimum standard, but with this much weight impact and concrete and roof aspects and water runoff, I don't honestly think minimum's going to qualify for this, and that much weight will change the gradient and affect the water table. We won't know until obviously we get that far into it, but that I know that is the biggest concern I've had pushback on this project, just so that you're aware. That's why I'm bringing this up for you now, because that is one of the biggest #1 issues I've had on this project is water retention.
I'll factually share, Maureen McBroom is our stormwater project manager.
Okay.
So she reviews all the engineered stormwater management plans, and then she provides that insight at site plan review committee,
Okay.
which is a public meeting. And then for all projects, not just this one, for all projects. And then she also is one that issues the permit. So nothing can happen until she has reviewed the plans.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, because again, I want to address the people who put us here as election, they want us to address the issues they bring up, and the water is the #1 issue I've heard.
But Mr. Schmidt, in addition to what the mayor just said, they're responsible for controlling stormwater on their property.
Yeah.
Right now, there is no one controlling the stormwater on that property. It's a farm field. So all that land is draining to wherever it's draining to. They don't have a responsibility to go back into the old subdivision and fix it, and yet, if they correct the stormwater problem on their site, that will have a very positive effect on the adjoining properties. It's just a fact of engineering. So they have the responsibility to control their stormwater. And that's what Ms. McBroom will do, is verify that they're doing that.
Go ahead.
And then the other issues that have been brought up is in the packet it mentions current market rate not impacting. Can you touch on the current proposed market rate for this area based on the proposal for the unit layout in regards to space and density that you have? An approximation. I know it's not going to be exact, but an approximation of what market rate is for similar properties.
You want to talk about Mayville that we just finished?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing in surrounding communities, Dodge County, Jefferson County, even as you get into Dane County, you're seeing between $1.50 to $1.70 a square foot. So that would put a rental rate anywhere from, $1,400 into the lower 2000s, depending on the size of the unit. So the units that we envision here are 2- and 3-family units, so they're a little larger.
2 3-bedroom. Yeah.
2 3-bedrooms, yeah. So, and that includes a private garage, they're private entrances, so in some regards, these are a little larger, because it's not, maybe an old style apartment that people are used to seeing with a common corridor, and, wall AC units. These are a lot like a condo or a home, but these are intended to be apartments, and we would project the rents in $26 to be in the $1,700 to $2,200 range.
Now, is that going to be including your basic utilities, or is that going to be separate?
It will include some utilities on other properties. We include internet, cable, water. The gas and electric generally isn't included because that's more consumption based. Could be $50, $75 for something like this. It's all LED fixtures, high efficiency appliances, furnaces. So that's what we find at the other properties.
Okay. So that was the other concern, is establishing I understand it's an estimate and we don't have the exact number, but that was one of the things that comes up is what is a realistic number based on current averages, so we know a realistic figure based on what actual cost is. Sure. I know we won't get actual cost until we get to that point, but we need an estimate of current market rate as well. Can you address the concerns that you've heard tonight in regards to target market, in regards to who you're looking for to bring into these units, and can you touch on whether or not any of this would qualify under HOA, and if so, what would be the restrictions that would be placed on there?
So the rental will have no HOA at all. The only contemplation of an HOA would be for the single-family condo section, and that would really be just to ensure the proper maintenance of the exteriors of the buildings, yards, snow removal, that sort of thing. It's not meant to impose design standards or go beyond any ordinance in that sense. In terms of who we're looking to have here, I mean, we're looking to have anyone who's willing to pay the rent that qualifies, that doesn't have a criminal history, and that's going to be a good tenant to us and hopefully a good citizen of Watertown. What we do find in other communities is the people that are moving in here, they're professionals moving to the area. They don't want to buy a house, probably because there may not be a great selection, or because they want to get used to the area. People coming for skilled jobs, professional jobs. A lot of people looking to downsize would like that first floor unit with the attached garage. We see a lot of people that come because they have aging family and they want to be close to them, and maybe they're not going to stay, you know, forever, but they want a place to come. So we're really seeing this in other communities. It's a net positive. People are very thankful that there's other options. You know, Watertown has a very low vacancy rate, and that's not because you're building a ton of apartments and houses and they're filling up so fast. It's because it is very challenging to build housing in these markets. It costs as much as it does to build in Madison or Milwaukee or some of the areas where they get $3 for rent, and that's just the, you know, the realities of it.
Okay. And some of the other issues that were brought up, just so you can address the concerns of the citizens present, in regards to the infrastructure costs, are those going to be consumed by you in regards to, you know, curb and gutters and sidewalks and those issues as well?
So what we're proposing is all private utilities. All those costs will be borne by the development. And, you know, again, we see this as a focus on zoning and comprehensive plan, but that does go into a TIF. And, you know, what we see as the purpose of the TIF is the reimbursement for those utilities that maybe historically the cities have paid for, but don't anymore. And what we would look at is an arrangement that the city takes on no risk, bears no upfront cost, but eventually over the course of, you know, 20 years pays a portion of that utilities back and is able to reap, you know, an incremental value of $40 million where currently there's zero.
Does anyone else have questions for these gentlemen while they're standing up here? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What other general comments? I don't want to make sure I'm not missing Alder Blanky. Generally, others. Mr. Smith.
Well, first of all, I consider us to be extraordinarily fortunate to have had so many interested citizens coming out and helping us to understand the issues that are the basis of this ordinance. The real essence of the ordinance before us right now is, are we going to authorize on this 20-acre parcel of land multifamily housing? And we have heard both at the public hearing and the delegation section this evening, through numerous communications, emails, letters, petitions, the sentiments of many of the individuals who are primarily living in this subdivision, and also many from other parts of our community. And I want to say from the outset, I am completely opposed to this change in the comprehensive plan and the next ordinance, which relates to the authorization of single-family, change of the zoning, basically, for multifamily. What we've heard are many reasons that our citizens are opposed to this project. Many mentioned the issue of it being too dense. There were concerns about the site plan itself and the design. There were concerns about the funding and whether it be a TIF or other means of funding. Concerns about the infrastructure that would make this multifamily project possible. Concerns about home values and the effect upon the properties that are already there. All taken together, very reasonable areas of concern and a legitimate basis for us as a council to vote against this change in the comprehensive plan. But what I wanted to just mention, primarily, what is most influential, most of a basis for determining the right way to go, is the impact upon this neighborhood. We hear the term Grandview Heights subdivision. I mean, it's kind of a sterile term, a subdivision. It just makes it sound so impersonal. But for over 30 years, this community, this neighborhood, has been taking shape. What you see out there on Allward Street, on that 20-acre parcel, a lot of overgrowth, a lot of grasses and weeds and everything else, that's what the whole area looked like 30 years ago. And after the public hearing, I wanted to try to get a sense of the collective heartbeat of that community. So I went out and I drove the streets. Beautiful homes. What a change over those decades from an open area which was primarily pasture land or farmland over the years preceding, but a dream was starting to take shape, that there in that part of our city could be a community that could be built up and take on a special character. And from the very outset, there are people with dreams that have moved into that area. There were dreams that underwrote the development itself by those who began to put it together. And then there were the individuals that decided to either build a home or buy a home there. And the question I kept asking myself as I drove around is, why did these folks choose to build here? Why did they want to live in this neighborhood? And part of the answer is something gave them an extraordinary confidence to invest into this area something that would constitute the essence of their very life. They were going to invest huge amounts of money to build a home, to raise a family, to be part of a neighborhood. And what gave them the confidence to begin that process, replicated over and over and over by many others to follow, was the fact that they had a confidence in the city's commitment to them. The city, long before the comprehensive plan, through the zoning process and through other commitments, basically said this is going to be a single family home neighborhood. And those who wanted to become part of that dream depended upon our commitment. We, as a city, were extending to them a protection for their resources, for their family, for their future, that they could take to the bank. The city of Watertown says this entire area is going to be single-family homes. As I drove around, with the exclusion of this 20-acre parcel and a small adjoining neighborhood park, it is all single-family homes. It was from the outset all zoned under the earlier zoning code R1, single-family homes. And as you look at each and every one of those homes, you see an investment by people that were going to build a future on the commitment and put their trust in the city. The last thing on the face of this earth that any one of those people ever anticipated is that we were going to authorize incredible density in 8 giant apartment buildings that are going to block views, are going to bring all sorts of people into that community that may not have the very same heart that these people that have invested into their homes had. And so, what do you have? The question today is very simply this: are we going to turn on its head everything the city has underwritten and basically made total commitment to these individuals for the purposes of something that in the present moment may appear attractive to some people? My view on changing comprehensive plans and changing zoning is that it should be done only very rarely, and that those rare occasions must be consistent with the willing participation and agreement of those who live there. We have seen exactly the opposite. Great opposition to this change. And I don't care what the specific density of this site plan is. I don't care what the funding mechanism is. I don't care about every nuanced infrastructure problem of the development. What I care about more than any of that is, what does the city's word mean? What is it worth for the city to give its commitment and, regardless of the changing circumstances, stand firm on that commitment so that people can depend upon us? Honor may not be the thing that is the most common commodity circulating in the culture today, but to me, honor is important. I believe our city's honor is at stake. We cannot willy-nilly wipe away the commitments we have made to dozens and dozens and dozens of people who have invested their life and their fortunes to live there. And the last thing I will do is vote to turn that single-family neighborhood into an area dramatically different from anything that those people who moved there ever envisioned. Now, do we need housing? Yes. Would it be good to have tax-producing properties there? Yes. And all of that will come as the market allows and as we move forward into the future. What I am here to say is this: meaningful alternatives for housing on this site and in many other locations through the city are there, they're being considered, and they are not far down the road. So to buy a bad idea and to change everything that underlay the commitments and the dependency of so many people just because of the notion that without it we're going to lose all sorts of opportunities down the future, it just is not accurate. And so what I am simply saying is this: in good time, this 20 acres will develop in the image of what it had always been intended to be. On that 20 acres, we can easily get 40 to 50 single-family homes, which will have a huge immediate taxpayer benefit of tax-producing properties. We just need to be patient. We need to recognize that whatever the future brings, nothing that we do that undermines our commitments and the trust that people have in us is ever worth doing.
Thank you. Before I come to you, I just want to check the room for people who haven't spoken yet, including Mr. Blanky. Okay, go for it, sir.
So I just want to make sure we get back to what's physically and statutorily present to us. Because currently, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, this parcel, this 20 acres is zoned institutional. That is the current zoning for the specific property legally, correct?
No, that's what the current future land use map dictates it as, is institutional. The current zoning is single family.
Second question, we as a city do not legally own this property. That is correct? Okay, so we're making some pretty big presuppositions, and I don't mean to degrade any of the comments made, but we don't own the property. The city doesn't own it. So we have no say into who the school district chooses to sell it to, if it meets whatever legal zoning for land use.
We don't have a say in who they sell it to if it doesn't.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And so I want to make sure that we understand statutorily, we can't control who the school district chooses to sell the property to. We impact what it can be zoned as, what can potentially be built there based on zoning or future zoning issues.
Mm-hmm.
We have exact control over that. I just want to make sure we understand statutorily where we're at on this piece of property.
Sure.
We don't own it. And that's the issue. So if the school district truly wanted to work with the residents of the neighborhood and work with the community, they would have done something already to this point to sell it to us or to a developer that's already adjacent to that if that's the path they wanted to go. That's hypothetical, that's my opinion, but I can't speak to them. I can only speak to what we can do, and we couldn't sell it if we wanted to. We could possibly buy it, but our budget doesn't allow us to buy 20 acres, I don't think, at this point for this year.
I do not have that in the budget.
Okay, I didn't think so, just confirming. The other issue I want, Stephen, can you clarify specific either explicit or implicit in this first ordinance before us? Does that do anything either implied or directly relating to guaranteeing the issue of TIF or TID funding? Statutory, legally?
It does not.
Okay, so I want to address that issue because that's been the biggest concern I've heard from a lot of people as well, is the funding. And I want to make sure that we're clear statutorily and legally what is before us. Not what hyperbole, not what people perceive as, but what is legally before us. I just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're actually doing from a voting standpoint. So statutory and legally, what we're doing is we're saying right now this is zoned single family and the school district owns it. Is that correct?
No.
And we're changing the comp, so this is changing the future comp plan from industrial to multifamily.
So you're merging two items, this
Right.
item and the next item together. So Stephen, do you want to say
Keep
what
me on track for this one.
2417 alone is doing?
The first ordinance is only modifying the future land use plan
Okay.
to go from institutional to the potential for multifamily.
Okay, so thank you for keeping me on track and not letting get those confused. Under institutional, what can be built there?
Yeah, I knew someone would ask that. Does anyone have the chart? Do you have the chart? I'll pull it up, keep
Okay.
going.
So I know it's a long list, but I want to pick out the top probably 10 things that could potentially be built there. So if it's potentially zoned as institutional in the future land grant process, and that's what the zoning is, if the school district sells it to somebody to build that, none of the debate that we had tonight matters because they can do it and we have no say as long as it meets that. I want to just know potentially what could go there with the potential zoning with the comp plan, just so we all understand what is on the table as it's zoned institutional. Because I know it's a long list and I don't have it memorized.
Yeah.
Indoor institutional descriptions include indoor public and not-for-profit recreational facilities such as gyms, swimming pools, libraries, museums, and community centers, schools, colleges, churches, nonprofit clubs, nonprofit fraternal organizations, convention centers, hospitals, jails, prisons, and similar land uses.
So those would be the top ones that could potentially get put in a place like that.
Under indoor ones, yes.
Are you under, so I'm at 550.
550-51
Yep.
sub C is where that list was provided.
The reason I brought that up is I wanted to make sure that we understood what is in the comp plan already, zoned institutional, what could go there, regardless of what the residents want around them. I mean, I could see a convention center going on a 20-acre plot, and that's going to be, you know, maybe an infrequent use, but that would bring a lot of traffic at random amounts of times. I used to run retreat convention planning for several years for the military. You can pack a lot of people in a small place and make a lot of money really quickly. However, that's not going to be beneficial to a residential neighborhood. I totally get that. I wouldn't want that in my backyard, and I have an industrial park. Okay. So I just want to make sure that we understand what currently this ordinance is doing, is taking a vote from institutional, which can be any of the things that was just listed off, to include a jail or a prison or a convention center, into multifamily. And again, we don't own this property. The school district's had all this time sitting on this property to work with us, work with the developers around there, to listen to the residencies, and they haven't done it. And they've ignored the residencies thus far. So all this is changing it from an institutional parcel to a multifamily with no legal, explicit or implied funding what's what I'm looking for? Guarantee is his word, related to TIF or TIT. So just so, like.
There's nothing in 24-17 related to a commitment of a TIF.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yep, I just want to make sure
Would
that's.
you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue I've heard, I think, tonight, next to some other issues, is the funding issue.
What
So-
I have on the screen is this section of code, so this, I'm just trying to page through it slowly so people can see opportunities with that land use.
Okay. And so I just want to make sure that this is simply just taking institutional to multifamily on a piece of property we don't own. And we have zero say in who the owner sells it to. Just so that we're,
Understood.
yeah, I'm repeating it because it's important.
Yep, I understand.
Because the school district does this dirty a lot, and this is one of those cases. And I go back to them, and I'm gonna toss them under the bus all night long on this issue, because they're making us look like the bad guy, and we're just the one with the shovel trying to pick up a mess.
Mr. Lampe?
I also want to address some of the comments Alderman Smith made, but on the school piece in particular, I mean, I'd love it if someone from our economic development team could chime in and talk a little bit about some of how we've worked on the school, basically to arrive at a builder with a development. I don't think that we're entirely hands-off on this one.
I mean, Mason, you can speak to that. The mic's off, yep.
I guess, you know, the way we've worked with the school district, you know, when I started with the city here back at the end of '22, you know, I knew housing was a deep concern for the city. This piece of land was identified as one of the top 5 potential sites for workforce housing in the city's 2022 workforce housing action plan that was done by the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation. I met with a total of 3 different developers to discuss this site. One of them, Hovde, had previously made an offer to the school district to acquire the property to build multifamily housing. The school district at that point, I don't recall the exact date of their offer when that happened, decided to take it out to market. And since then, Heartland Shores is the only entity that has made any offer to buy the property. Did talk to another developer. They felt it was great for multifamily. I'll mention their name. That's Wangard Properties. Stu Wangard, they're not CEO anymore, but a principal there, wrote a letter of support for this project. So talked to 3 different developers who all felt that this would be appropriate for multifamily housing. I have not talked to any developers who felt this would be a good place for single family as of now. Again, the item that you're looking at is the future land use, which kind of has to work hand in hand with the zoning. Right now, it's institutional. The school district owned it, thinking they might build a school there. They've decided not to. So I believe best practice, I'm not Brian Zerbis and he's on vacation, but I believe best practice would be, once you realize that a future land use is probably never going to be realized on a piece of property, you probably would want to change that to something more appropriate. So I hope that answers your question, Alderman Lampe.
It does. Thank you. And hopefully when we turn it back to Alderman Schmidt, we'll see if that satisfies as well. I do want to go back and address some of the comments by Alderman Smith, though, and I am concerned that we are creating new barriers of entry to people in the city, and I really want to reject the characterization of new residents of having less than a pure heart. I really want to welcome people to this community, and really the best way to do that is, establish good places for them to live. As we continue to hear in terms of the types of residents that we're expecting to attract, immediate contributions to the city. In many cases, they have jobs here already. They're basically looking to move closer and reducing that commute time. But I'm also more concerned, I think, than most people in this room with financial viability of the city. One of the challenges I think that we're going to have looking around the corner here is how do we fund city operations, essentially because, as many of you know, we have some restraints placed on us. We are part of a statewide program that essentially incentivizes us to keep our tax increases low. And obviously that's a program that I think that most of you would join me in continuing to support. But in order to stay under that program, we have to be cognizant of the driving factors of what that is. One is inflation. Hopefully you've noticed in your own personal life that inflation has started to ease a little bit. The state actually has a more aggressive inflation reduction number ahead of us. We're going to see that in budget season, I think. I think we're no longer sitting at 5% or more. We're well below that, aren't we, Mark? So it's dropping, but that's one of the factors. But one of the ones that really is in our control is, and when I say factor, this is basically like, what does the state allow us to base our budget and the extra money that we use to pay for firefighters, police officers, everything else that we need in our community. The other factor that we have under control is new construction. And we are also looking at a number that is not going to be very pleasant coming up on this budget season. I think we saw some preliminary figures at the finance. I believe that the ones we saw at the finance committee, they're not quite going to be as rosy as that. One of the main things that we can do as a council is basically encourage additional new development in the city. That's one of the few factors we can use to basically continue to cope with increases in wages, work with inflation for things that the city has to purchase in its other ways. And it's basically the only way that we have, essentially under our control, since inflation is not, that we can basically avoid severe cuts in city services. So again, I'm concerned about financial viability. I hope others will take that into consideration in looking at this and other developments that are on our map. If we continue to say no to everything, basically because the neighbors don't want to see it, we will never grow the city, and we are basically going to be stagnant.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
I just have a technical question. Was the zoning for single family, as it is now, did it exist before the comprehensive plan? So then I need a lawyer or a zoning expert. But if we don't amend the zoning, then isn't it still legal to build single family there?
So
if it existed before the comprehensive plan?
I don't know the answer to your first question, but I could be wrong, so you can stop me. In institutional, I presume a land use is single family. On a future land use map, then you go to zoning.
Under the current zoning, yes, it would be permissible.
Single family.
So currently, single family is permissible on that land. That's my understanding too.
I think I'm saying that right. I'm not a zoning expert though, so don't take me to the bank on that one. But
well, that's my understanding as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Others? Yes.
So to address Plan B, it did answer my question in regards to the specific in the zoning. And I want to go back to the semantics and repeat it just to ensure that what we're voting on simply is changing institutional to multifamily in the future land comp plan. And that is it. Nothing else implied, nothing else implicit, nothing else legally binding other than that. Correct, Stephen?
Correct.
But this doesn't lock us into any specific developer, any agreements in regards to what may or may not be in finalized terms, simply just changing institutional to multifamily in the future comp plan. Just so I make sure I know exactly what we're voting
Yes.
For the current ordinance, yes.
So section 1 on page 45. that's where I would point you to. That the city's comprehensive plan be amended to reflect that the future land use category shown for 1310 Allward Street lists the parcel change from institutional to multifamily on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan pursuant, then it states the statute. Yep.
I just want to make sure that we're clear on exactly what we're doing tonight on this specific ordinance.
On this one.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I want to get to, so, with that, I would call a vote.
Got it out. I
Is
knew
she-
someone would do it. So you're making a motion then to end debate? Is that
Yes.
correct? Is there a second to that? Okay, a second by Mr. Lampy. That is not debatable, but we do need 2/3. So Megan, would you please take the roll? Did I get that right?
Correct.
Thank you. Megan, will you please take the roll?
Aye.
Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis. Lampy.
Aye.
Ford. Bartz. Blanky.
Aye.
Smith. Motion passed 7-3.
Thank you. Okay, so with that.
Point of order, could the other alders please turn their microphones on?
6-3.
I have 6-3, and thank you, Mr. Blanky. Everyone, just as a reminder, please make sure your mics are pulled down. I think everyone seems on, but maybe just put them a little closer. And Mr. Blanky, if that comes up again, pipe in at any point.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask if there is a motion on ordinance number 24-17.
I believe there was a
Okay.
motion.
Oh, thank you. We debated for a minute. Okay, so we already have a motion and a second. We are no longer debating, so go ahead.
Lampy.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Bartz. Blanky.
No.
Smith.
No.
Schmid.
Aye.
Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis. Motion passed 5-4.
Okay. All right. Same topic, but different topic. So come with me. Ordinance 24-18. This is to amend Chapter 550 of the official zoning map of the City of Watertown to rezone 1310 Allward from SR4 single family to MR10 multi-family. This is here from me and the Plan Commission on its first reading. Mr. Lampy.
To approve 24-18.
Motion by Mr. Lampy, second by Mr. Bartz. I would, I'm going to preempt your question, if I may, and I just want you to clarify for folks what this one is. Were you going to ask that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this ordinance is in regards to changing the zoning that is currently in existence for the Allward property. It would change it from the single-family zoning to the multifamily.
And again, that's nothing else, just that we're not implied, explicit, anything else in regards to any developer, future developing.
Correct.
Okay.
Other comments or questions?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
If it remains single-family, then is it legal to build both multifamily and single-family on that land? Because we're not changing the zoning. So it existed before.
So I think the question is it permissible to build single-family if this?
Right. If we, previously, it was institutional future use and single-family zoning, and you told me it was permissible to have both institutional and single-family on that land. So my question now is, if the future land use is multifamily and
Okay.
the zoning remains single-family, is it permissible to have both on that land?
I gotta, unless you know it, I'd have to look it up.
Since we're not, I believe, since the zoning is not being amended and it has existed before, it may stand.
So to clarify, in the prior one, you would have had to have amended the zoning into institutional in the future to place the institutional. It may be that institutional is permitted under the single-family zoning residence. I would have to double-check that ordinance.
I'm looking right now.
In terms of the multifamily, there's a restriction on how many residential units can be built per acre under the single-family designation.
I think what I'm referring to is the law that says that the zoning code must comply with the comprehensive plan. And so I'm wondering, since the zoning is not being changed, if it still remains single-family, if it can still remain. So if we were amending it, then it would need to comply with the comprehensive plan. But if it's not amended, does it still, can you still have single-family?
You can have single-family on multifamily zone property.
Yes.
So even if it was amended and zoned as multifamily, single-family would still be a permissible use
Okay.
on that zone.
So the answer to my first question was yes.
For single families, yes. Not
Okay.
necessarily that you could have multifamilies on the single-family zone parcel. You would have to amend the zoning
Oh, I
in
see
the
what you're saying.
future.
I see what you're saying.
And
Well, I think that's what I was asking, actually.
Is this the spot? Am I in the right place? So this is land use. I'm in multifamily MR10 district. Allowable principal land uses.
But
So-
that's current zoning. We're talking about future land use.
No.
I thought you were asking about
We're
if
now
this was.
talking
okay.
about current zoning.
Let me just stay out of that.
Okay. I think the answer to my question is, if the future land use is multifamily, yes, you could still have single-family only on that land.
You can still place single-family on a multi-zone property, so it's still within the multifamily designation.
And that's what I'm pointing out. Single family is a principal land use permitted by right in an MR10 district.
Yes. So is it wise to change this then?
There's a difference between what I would call a master plan,
Yes.
right, the comprehensive plan, and the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So I have to build according to the zoning ordinance, correct?
Man, if I could rewind the
Correct.
clock, we would
So
not
in
allow
other
the
words,
zoning
what I'm asking you is, even if the school wanted to build a school building on a master planned institutional lot, they would have had to come to us and ask us to rezone the property to institutional before they could build,
Yes.
correct? Right. So we're in the process now of looking at a multifamily master plan, comprehensive plan, right? And we're asking the question, do we rezone the property to multifamily, which would allow a developer then to come in and build multifamily? Or today,
Yes.
prior to this motion, or this next motion, we now have a multifamily comprehensive plan with an underlining zoning district of single family, right? So even if our developer were to come in tomorrow, if the zoning isn't changed, they would have to come in with single family, correct?
Correct.
There. Does that help?
Oh, I understand it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna come around. I just wanna level set. We have a motion and a second on 24-18, going from SR4 to MR10. This side of the room. Was your hand up? Go for it, sir.
This, in my estimation, is the greatest conceivable deviation from anything any current owner in that Grandview Heights subdivision could have envisioned. From the day that it was changed to residential from agricultural or whatever it was, it has always been single family. Every single living unit in that subdivision is a single family home. 100% of the remaining land was designated for either parks to serve the single family home neighborhood or a school to serve the city and the folks that would be living there in that subdivision. So now what we're saying, after the passage of all of these decades, with the building of dozens and dozens of single-family homes, every one with the recognition that the entire subdivision was zoned R1 from the outset and SR4 now, single-family home. Now, we're going to throw that completely overboard, and we're going to say we're going to accept the most substantial deviation from that within the residential classification and allow immense, unanticipated, unenvisioned density to come along and completely alter the nature of this portion of our community. What's best for the community? Well, throw this subdivision under the bus because we can see better benefit in the short run by throwing up 8 16-unit buildings and just say, our word, our commitment, your capacity to depend upon us in the city of Watertown is worth just about Zippo.
Mr. Schmid.
So I want clarify specific numbers for me, if you would, either Stephen or Mason. On a 20 acre parcel, SR4 zoning allows for how many units based on that specific zoning for density?
I believe that would be 4 units per acre.
4 per acre.
Yes.
So roughly 100, just under 100 acres, 80 units-ish, if rough math in it?
Up to, yes.
Up to 80 acres, or 80 units. Okay, and then with the MR10 classification, what does that bump to?
It's 10 units per acre.
So that takes us to roughly 200.
Yes.
If I'm mathing it right.
Yes.
Okay, and this is rough math in it, right? Okay, so that is physically what we're being voted on. So I want to address an issue that I'm hearing. It's 2024. I've been in town for going on 12 years. This parcel that we're talking about has been completely barren land for that entire time. So in over a decade, there's been zero movement on this land. No one's come in when interest rates were 3% or less to buy a home, and you could get a home realistically for under 150 and get a nice quality home. In the last 5 years, we've seen home prices over double. Okay, so I've been on council 5 years. This is my 6th year. Just for transparency's sake, so those of you in the room understand where I'm coming from. So I'm looking at a 20-acre parcel that's been nothing but barren land for over a decade, if not longer. That has been sitting there doing absolutely nothing, and because the school district owned it, we got zero revenue, if I understand correctly. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay, so we had a 20-acre parcel doing absolutely nothing but collecting space. That could be doing something. Had a school gone in there, I don't know, Mason, do you know what kind of school they were talking about? K through 8, high school?
I believe it was an elementary school.
So K through 4 potentially, normally, right?
Most of our public schools are K-5, but I don't want to speak on behalf of the school district.
Just so you know, kind of the initial thought process, you know, predating when I was here. And so you're talking in elementary school with increased traffic, increased children, increased buses, increased wear and tear, tax exempt, and all the concerns I heard about people using the parks. All those school kids after school are going to run over there anyways until they get picked up unless they stay on property. Elementary schools are not quite as ambitious as middle school kids and older, but again, that's still something to consider when living near a school as a potential. So this ordinance that we're specifically voting on is simply just allowing for single family and multifamily. Am I understanding that correctly, Stephen? Either or if we change it based on what's currently in writing before us.
It would permit single family or multifamily, yes.
So it would prevent both. And this ordinance does not imply explicit or implied or otherwise guarantee a specific builder or any other special funding whatsoever. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Keep going back to that because I want to make sure we address that and we're clear on exactly what we're doing. This does not say that that property has to be developed multifamily. It just opens a possibility to that, and there's still a cap in regards to how many units potentially could go on there. So at low end, if they max out at SR4, it's 80 units-ish. Okay, am I right? Okay, or a max of 200. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I get the numbers right, Mason.
Those are correct, yes.
Okay, so what we're looking at is anywhere from 80 to 200 units, potentially, if you can find a developer who wants to buy it and develop the property. We have some tentative plans, but again, nothing is set in stone. That's not what we're voting on in these this ordinance specifically. All that is yet to be developed. All that's yet to be determined. And again, we don't own the land. So I go back to that, but we don't own this, and it's been vacant for over a decade at least, if not longer. So we're trying to do something with the land, and I get the greater good, and I hate that statement because the government never makes anything better. It generally makes everything worse, and we're good at that. I say that, and you know where I'm coming from on that one.
I understand.
Okay, which is why we try to make these, we have these discussions and go on public record of having these discussions, whether we agree or we disagree. And I try to side as much as I can with people who contact me, which is, to be fair, not very many. Which is why the questions I asked the developer was the water issue was the big one. That was the #1 comment I got. And as Alderman Board mentioned, it's not even their problem. They're trying to only address what their potential development would be. We can address the declining, residency rate and everything else, but that has nothing to do with it. So to the ordinance at hand, we're talking about changing from SR4 to SR10, which just goes from a potential of 80 units to a potential of 200. They can still build single-family units at up to 4 per acre. They still have that opportunity to do that. We're not saying they can't. We're just saying you can do either or. So, okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Looked like you were going to your mic. Yes, sir.
Okay, I brought this up the last time too. And when I was on the council the last time, we had upsized the wastewater pipe from that same area. There's a lift station out there, and I'm concerned about how much water capacity we're gonna have coming back to the sewage treatment plant. Because if you're gonna have this density of people in here compared to the single family, I'm just wondering what that's gonna do to our wastewater piping.
Yeah, so I can factually tell you that as a general process, not specific to one developer, generally speaking, before things go before our governing bodies, Mason leads an internal discussion where our department heads weigh in on if they have the capacity. So in this case, that discussion, Mason, that discussion happened, I presume, with Pete?
It did. Basically, what he shared is, without seeing a detailed site plan, he wouldn't be able to comment fully on it. But I had communicated with him, and he said, as for our water system in that area that was built to sustain significant development, each parcel developed has a tap or connection for services set area. That is a limiting factor if anybody's experiencing water pressure issues. It's not the distribution from the water mains. That's what he said.
I see you, Ms. Davis. I'll pop over. So, and then,
Wastewater now, and also for the lift station.
yep, so
Okay.
Pete would respond, that was about water, but Pete would respond on both topics. And then just, again, and this actually is applicable to the annexation one too. All of the detail of any type of infrastructure gets hammered out internally, as I just described, and then also at site plan review committee, which is a public meeting. So a lot of that stuff, that is where the rubber meets the road on those. And then at plan commission. So multi-steps, again, generally for every development. That's how it works.
Down the road.
Yep, Ms. Davis.
I wonder how quickly you can navigate to the comprehensive plan.
I can.
It's my understanding that that's a guide for us. It's a guide we should follow. Not only do we have to follow it, as we've been talking about here, for the future land use, but it also provides principles and policies that we should follow when it comes to design. So if you can find page 71, which is the multifamily page. I believe.
Yeah, what is the, like?
71 PDF up there, yeah. Try that.
I did that one, so it's taking me to page 59. That's okay, I'll get to page 71 quickly.
It's the section on multifamily.
71.
Is that multifamily?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, let me zoom in a little bit for you.
Yeah, zoom into the bottom where it has policies and programs. And as you look over those, I know it's kind of small for people in the audience, it's giving policies and programs and when it comes to design features. And again, this was the comprehensive plan that was voted on and approved. If you go down to number 6, number 6 says that multifamily should encourage the use of balconies, porches, stoops, garden walls, varied buildings. If you go to the last sentence there, it says, in general, multifamily dwelling units should be designed so that they appear to be a grouping of smaller residential units and match the scale of the surrounding neighborhood. So that's one thing that we can spend some time on. But number 7, it should promote architectural design of new development that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, including building and facade materials, building height, building bulk, setbacks, windows, doors, roof designs and colors. So that number 6, second sentence there, I think is significant. One of the feedback we've had, and I've also expressed, is in the design of the buildings, the scope, the size. And according to the comprehensive plan, which is our growth plan, it's what we voted on and approved, it says multifamily dwelling units should be designed so that they appear to be a grouping of smaller residential units. When I read that, I'm thinking right across the street in Fieldcrest, which has smaller residential unit groupings. And so I think that's significant. If, as you have done, you have voted to change the comprehensive plan to multifamily, then I think it's fair that the design should also follow the comprehensive plan and the multifamily guidelines.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to comment on this? On
I just have one thing.
Yep, go ahead.
I don't want to belabor the point, but this was zoned. One of the comments that has come up frequently is density and the fact that the density is comparable to what would have been had a school gone in. The word was it was to be an elementary school, and I pulled the numbers off of the school district's own website. We have 4 elementary schools in the city of Watertown. Lincoln Elementary with 156 students, 32 staff, for a total of 188 people there at any given time. Douglas Elementary School, 295 students, 70 staff, for a total of 365. Schur School with 265 students and 70 staff for 335. And Webster with 332 students and 64 staff for a total of 396. Now, mind you, these students and staff are only there Monday through Friday during business hours. And the only time that that presence is really going to impact the area is twice a day, in the morning during drop off and in the afternoon at pickup. Now, the proposed density of this development is a total of 158 dwellings. Now, a conservative estimate, since these are all 2 to 3 bedroom units, would be 2 individuals per unit, for a total of 316 people there, 24/7, 365. So the argument that this is comparable to what would happen there if a school was there, I don't think is fair, and I don't think it's accurate. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to comment on 24-18?
I think one of the things that's kind of interesting, everything to the west of this parcel is multifamily. It's duplexes and condominiums. Everything to the south of this parcel is multifamily. I lived in them when I moved here. The property due south of Grandview subdivision is multifamily owned by the hospital. The parcel north of Grandview subdivision is multifamily on the other side of 4th Street. So the entire development around Grandview has gone to more than single-family homes. So the city's agreement with the residents in Grandview was within the property lines of Grandview subdivision. And yes, there was an indication that there was institutional or single-family residential in the adjacent property. I think the developer has made every attempt to screen the single-family from the multifamily, even though we're not looking at his site plan today. And I think the city has all kinds of opportunities to come back and answer all those questions that were just asked about materials, about design standards, about all those other issues. I think we have a development around this particular parcel that is all multifamily. And this just becomes the transition from those other multifamily properties into a single-family development. And that's a pretty typical planning approach that's being taken in every part of the country.
Thank you.
The other thing I find interesting, by the way, is one of the gentlemen said he was a residential home designer. I started doing that 40, 45 years ago. Price of building a home was $40 a foot. The price of building a home today is $300 a foot. It's becoming very, very expensive for single-family homes, which is probably why nobody has stepped up to say they want to build homes there.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna give last call in just a second. Before I do 24-18, SR4 to MR10. No specific project, no specific payment structure, just SR4 to MR10. Last comments, questions? Oh no. All right, Megan.
Lampy. Board. Bartz. Blanky.
I can't hear anyone's votes.
Okay, so we had Lampy, aye, Board, aye, Bartz, aye, Blanky,
No.
Smith. Schmid.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer.
No.
Davis.
No.
Motion passed 5-4.
Okay. Because there's so many people in the room for this one, the next thing is right back here in 2 weeks for the exact same reading of the exact same ordinances. So nothing has changed as of this point in time, but that would be the next tangible step. That is August 20th? Someone?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Can
Sir.
I make a suggestion?
Sorry,
Hey, just don't call me late for
Yeah,
dinner.
sorry.
Because there were so many residents that wanted to talk about Graymark, can I suggest that we move D ahead of C?
I have watched the people that are here for Belinsky walk around this
Sorry,
room.
go ahead.
And considering that we don't have a lot of residents, I venture to bargain that one may be swift. But I appreciate that. Really, you want to recess now? No, okay. Okay, definitely, and for those of you that are here just for that, it's also totally fine. You're welcome to stay, and no one's going to judge you if you don't. All right, let's move then to ordinance 24-19. This is to adopt the PUD General Development Plan under section 550-152. This is for areas C, B, H, I, and K of the Belinsky Hunter Oaks development. This is here for me and the Plan Commission on the first reading.
Move for 24-19.
Thank you, Mr. Blanky. Is there a second?
Support.
Who was it? Second by Mr. Board.
Question
Yes, ma'am.
for the developer.
Come on up, Mr. Donovan.
A really quick question. Are you currently building single-family homes?
Absolutely.
Huh, that's my only question.
Not in Watertown, though. We've got ranch condos that we started developing.
So they are being built.
They're being built all over, and
Right.
We are expanding into Jefferson County, which is, we've done extremely well in the city of Jefferson, and that's why we came up with this plan for the small lot subdivisions.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Developer, so you might as well stay up there. So I have concerns about your plan, specific in regards to your water mediation, because you made a comment last time related to that your plan only works if all the puzzle pieces are in place properly. I have great concerns about that because I drove through there just recently, and it looks like there's current development in what appears to be a glorified swamp. And I have great concerns in regards to how you plan to mediate that water with the proposal in regards to keeping lots dry and basements as dry in a brand new home, because I'll be frank, I have not heard many positive things about that development.
Okay, well, I do agree with you that there is a swamp over there. And we've been there, I was there this evening because I take videos and send them back. We were supposed to grade the site. So if you look very closely at the site, you will see that the water mains are probably sticking up about 4 to 5 feet. That is where the grade needs to get to, so that everything then goes into the wetlands. We do not have the stormwater completely built at this time because we haven't been able to with the rain. So the stormwater for the site will go all the way down to the pond on the southwest corner of where the condominiums are. So once that's all designed, it's all approved with the city, engineers have all looked at it, they've signed off on it, and it needs to be constructed for it to work properly. That's how that works.
Area K, that stormwater pond is wrapped into, it's the pond, is wrapped into this bigger picture development plan.
Yeah, Area K, the water for the small lot subdivision drainage does not go into Area K. Area K is mostly the area on top of the hill where the park is and all of the existing development that's been built to date. That handles all the retention pond for Area K.
Just so I understand, so you're saying everything has been approved that will handle the water runoff from E, B, let's see if I get to rate these correctly. It's really hard to see. E, so B, and then this AD area, which is in this greenish color, I think, is the proposal where the current swamp is. It looks like there's a water pond in there. Is that part of the plan to retain some of that area as well?
That is correct.
Okay, so is that, you said it's sufficient. I have concerns if you're talking about having to bring the grade up almost 4 feet. You're gonna push all that extra weight on that aquifer, and that water's gotta go somewhere, even if you're mediating.
No, that water is all from drainage.
That's all drainage?
That's all from rainwater.
Okay.
If you would, yes, that is all from rainwater. That is not seeping water from groundwater.
Okay, because I mean, I've seen that underwater a lot in the last 6 to 10 years, so that's why I'm concerned about that area specifically.
That is correct. And it will stay that way until the grading is corrected properly.
Okay.
And your engineer is here if he would like to.
Did he come in the room? Are you still here? Oh, hey there.
And just,
You never went back.
let me also be clear, Mr. Schmidt, the area where those condominiums are being built right now, that is the only area that is approved for drainage. All of the other areas have to have all of the civil engineering designed, completed, so that it can also drain into the specific ponds that are designated for those areas.
Other questions, comments in general?
I have one.
Yes?
Have the design standards changed since you started the development
In regards to?
to stormwater and other engineering requirements?
I would think they have, yes.
I'm seeing Andrew shake his head.
It was, I think we were approved in 1999.
That's why I asked.
Then yes.
Yeah, so the standards for the state of Wisconsin have evolved and have changed. Probably a lot more restrictive, I would think, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So if we had today's standards in 1999, a different issue in that development today? Or would we be in better condition today?
I can't answer that. I'm not an engineer, but I can only say that the pond that's out there in K is efficient to handle more volume than what it is right now, taking on for water, even with the potential flood rains that we've had for the last 60 days. That pond is, most ponds in developments are designed for 100-year floods. That rarely ever happens. When it does, it does.
It's happening more and more.
Well, true, but that is the design standard, that every parcel that has stormwater has to be able to accommodate the water that it's on site for a 100-year flood.
Right.
So that is why you see the depth and the widths and the lengths of all these ponds.
Okay.
Others? Let me check on Mr. Blinky. Yes, where are you?
Mayan,
Yes,
over
sir.
here.
Thank you.
Could you scroll, oh, you
Oh,
lost
I
it.
can. Yep, I just wanted to pop back to Mr. Blinky, make sure I wasn't missing him. There we go.
Scroll the other way.
South.
Is that up or down? I don't know.
South. North or south is normally easier.
Purple is what the most immediate building program is, right? Going up the hill. The green.
Could you restate that, please?
Can you put him on the map number-wise and which
Oh, okay.
parcels you're talking about, John?
Go up or go down. The other way. I want to see the purple.
He wants to be by the park.
Yes. What is the next development on that part again?
The next development for 2026 would be the area H2PH1, which is the dark blue.
26.
Yep.
Right here.
Thank you.
Anybody else on this one?
You said 26.
That is correct.
That's
Last
for
time
the-
I heard you say 25.
I believe the ordinance specifically states 26.
Mr. Wetzel was jumping to single-family homes, not small lot single families.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's a lot of things
Correct.
playing here.
You were answering the question for traditional single-family lots.
That is correct.
Okay. Yep, nope, just making sure, it's okay. All right,
If I may.
sure.
Our goal is for the small lot areas, the 3 phases there for 53 lots. You see 8 lots, if you scroll down just a little more, on Belmont Drive there, 1 through 8. We would like to start those ASAP within the next 30 to 45 days.
Right, up in here.
Our plan is we have already started the civil engineering, taking a risk that we will get the approval from the Common Council from today on the 20th, that we have started design work on that area, phase 1, and also area phase 2, which will also incorporate area phase 3 of the small lots. Our goal here is to continuously build these houses out and not stop. That's our goal. We're not waiting for homeowners to want to do home packages. We will certainly allow it, but our goal is here to build out all these homes and not stop.
What's the size of the homes?
They're anywhere from 1,300 to about 1,650 square feet. They're mostly they're mostly 2-story, and there will be some ranches.
Anybody else on this topic? Megan?
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer. Davis. Lampy. Board.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan, for joining us. You will be back on the agenda with these same folks next time. So just giving you a little bit of time range for you.
If they're on the 20th, would you be kind to put me ahead of them?
I'll give it a try. I was gonna say you probably don't need to attend. You could attend remotely, but I know you'll just say, no, I'll be here, so.
I'll be here.
All right. Okay, let's go to our last ordinance anyway. This is ordinance 24-20. This is for Graymar LLC and RJAB LLC and the Town of Watertown annexation. This is here for me and the Plan Commission. Where am I?
I'd like to make a motion to table ordinance 24-20 and send it back to Plan Commission so they can discuss the comments that were brought forward tonight during the public comment period.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. That is not debatable. We just need a majority. I would have loved to provide some input on that, but I can't. Blanky was the second. Megan?
Davis.
Aye.
Lampy. Board. Bartz.
No.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-3.
Okay. That'll go back to the Plan Commission. This type of annexation didn't require a public hearing, so that wouldn't normally go back to the Planning Commission. So can you make sure you tell Brian? Yeah, you can expect that to come back. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, Plan Commission, folks. It's the next stop. All right, let's go to resolutions. The first is Exhibit 9635. This is a resolution to amend the Employee Handbook of Policy and Procedure with some general updates. This is here for me and the Finance Committee.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer, second by Mr. Wetzel. I ventured to tell our HR person she could leave, and I could handle the questions, or Mark. So, any questions? She actually had a music booster club meeting, so. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So that was just one in opposition. Megan, you heard that one? Okay. Next, so that carried. Next is Exhibit 9636. This is a resolution for T-Mobile site ML82089A. This is a license agreement for the O'Connell Water Tower. This is here for Mr. Board and Public Works.
Motion to
Bartz.
approve 9636.
Motion by Mr. Bartz, second by Mr. Board. Questions or comments on this one, you guys? Megan?
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith. Schmidt.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Davis. Lampy.
Aye.
Board.
Aye.
Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you. We're at the point in our agenda for comments from citizens present. All right, with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer, second by Mr. Schmidt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned at 9:35. Thanks, everybody.